Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Please like and subscribe, become a member to the channel. I'd really appreciate that. Just know you guys are the real MVPs, man, when you're supporting anybody who's creating content. This takes, I enjoy it. It's not work, but it takes a lot of time. And just if you really enjoy what I'm putting out, man, show your support. Become a member, subscribe, but leave that donation for that fried rice and chicken wings. Yo, man. Devin Haney's Crawford blueprint. Can Devin Haney follow the blueprint that Crawford used to beat Canelo and show that IQ can beat power as Devin Haney gets ready to face Brian Norman Jr.? Now, let me make this crystal clear. I'm going to keep breaking this fight down, and I'm going to try to put out just as many videos on these guys that I did for Crawford and Canelo. Because some people think Haney's just going to get out there and outspeed and out IQ Brian Norman Jr., and other people feel Brian Norman Jr. is just going to get out there and knock Haney out. But then there are some who feel Brian Norman Jr. is going to out IQ and also outpower and outmaneuver and just outdo everything when it comes to Devin Haney, because they feel Devin Haney is not the fighter he once was and lacks confidence. What I'll say is this. If Devin Haney, if he's the one to follow Crawford's blueprint, Devin Haney's going to have a good chance. But it sounds like Brian Norman Jr. is kind of working on some similar things that Crawford worked on getting ready for Canelo. So Devin Haney's efforts and Brian Norman Jr.'s efforts could cancel each other out. But the story is this. When Terence Crawford agreed to fight Canelo Alvarez, most of the boxing world thought it was a suicide mission. May as well have strapped a bomb to his chest and detonated that shit. Let me tell you something. Like 75% of people that were commenting on those videos, they were saying all kind of stuff about Terence Crawford. He can't win, you're stupid. I'm coming back to this video. I'm coming back. I'm this and that and all this shit. And then Terence Crawford ended up winning the fight. Crickets. Now, there's a little bit of a difference now with Brian Norman Jr. and Devin Haney. We got to understand, Devin Haney ain't Terence Crawford. Brian Norman Jr. may be in a better position than Canelo was ever in, just looking at Brian Norman Jr. and what he brings to the table. I'm talking about as far as, well, let me reword that. Right now, Brian Norman Jr. is in a much better position than what Canelo was in when he fought Crawford. Because it seems like maybe Canelo had just been through so much till he got to the point to where he became a business and saw himself as a business and was chasing the money, not greatness. As a result, Canelo let his guard down a bit and underestimated Terence Crawford. Where Crawford kept his guard up, took Canelo serious, went into the lab, and came out a machine. And on fight night, Canelo he didn't have the answers. You don't have the answers, Sway. Put a Sway Kanye West on him. But with Brian Norman Jr., I understand some comparisons to Canelo when it comes to him fighting Devin. Supposed to be bigger, supposed to be stronger, the knockout puncher. But understand this. Brian Norman Jr. hasn't reached that point to where he sees himself as a business and he's done with legacy, done chasing greatness, and now he's just chasing money. Nah, Brian Norman Jr. still has that hunger. He still got that desire for more. Because he's really just getting started. He's a young cat, man. Was he 24 or some shit? He's younger than Devin. But I just want to make sure that I pointed that out. Now understand. Canelo's the bigger man. Brian Norman Jr. is supposed to be the bigger man. Stronger fighter. Canelo was the proven champion across multiple divisions. Okay? Crawford was supposed to be the underdog. In this fight, Haney's supposed to be the underdog. But because they're just looking at his past performances and just what Brian Norman Jr. has been doing his last few fights. But the thing is, with Devin Haney, if he's following Crawford's blueprint, can the smaller man do what Crawford did, which is the impossible, and get a win over Brian Norman Jr.? But I'm just going to say this. What Crawford did was textbook brilliance. That shit Crawford did, not anybody can pick up the blueprint and go do it and just say, oh, this is what Crawford did, I'm going to follow it. It's just like somebody out here, you driving an automatic vehicle your whole life. You see this guy driving stick shift. You're like, oh, that shit looks cool. I see what you're doing. First gear, second gear. You jump in, ruin the goddamn engine, burn out the clutch. Because it's easier said than done. But you got to understand, Crawford carefully analyzed Canelo long before agreeing to the fight, studying every tendency, every flaw, every sign of decline. They were on it. Crawford's team was on it. He didn't rush into negotiations. He only signed once. He knew he had the blueprint to win. Crawford and his team, smart people. That patience, that cold calculation was his first victory. Now, I don't know how Devin Haney and his team are approaching Brian Norman Jr., but I would have to say, since Bill Haney watched Canelo and said, you know what, Terence Crawford can beat him, and then he went and told Bud, that's your fight, you can beat him. That would make me believe that Bill Haney had been watching Brian Norman Jr. and that he sees something in Brian Norman Jr. that he feels his son can exploit. Same way he saw something in Canelo that he felt Bud could exploit. So if they have the patience, if they're calculated, if they're looking at the flaws, that's any sign to show that maybe Brian Norman Jr. isn't as great as what a lot of us believe him to be, any signs to show that although he's being labeled as this knockout artist, he can't knock something out if they're not there to be hit. If Devin Haney and his team are getting this right, this could be, just like Crawford and his team, it could be his first sign of victory. Now, with Terence Crawford, once training camp began, Crawford tailored everything to the task at hand. Devin Haney is tailoring everything to the task at hand. However, Brian Norman Jr. is also tailoring everything to the task at hand. With Crawford, he built his body for strength without sacrificing speed. He sparred much bigger men to simulate Canelo's size and power. He redefined his defense, sharpened his jab, and drilled counterpunches to perfection. He worked on body conditioning. He worked on being able to absorb punches. He worked on his diet. He worked on his mental. Terence Crawford crossed all T's, dotted all I's. That's why when he went in there to face Canelo, by the time fight night arrived, Crawford wasn't just ready, he was beyond ready. He was over-prepared. But the good thing about Crawford, over-prepared and over-trained are two different things. He entered that ring on fight night and he peaked on fight night. Canelo, I believe, overtrained, peaked in training camp and got the ring with Crawford and ended up getting the shock of his life. Now, with Devin Haney, he's got to do those same things. He's got to work on all the things that Crawford worked on. Putting on that functional mass. Making sure he can absorb punches. Being in there with bigger guys. Making sure his feet are fast. He's got great footwork. Being okay with clinching, turning. Being ready to block, catching, and counter all the shots that Brian Norman Jr. is going to throw. If you watch Canelo against Crawford, Crawford was catching everything, almost everything Canelo was throwing. But I'll say this, Brian Norman Jr. has a varied punch output. Canelo just had this single shot punch, power punch delivery system. Kind of easy to deal with that when you know what's coming. And you can take the power off those shots. I don't think Devin Haney's going to have it that easy in there with Brian Norman Jr. He's not going to be looking to throw one shot. Brian Norman Jr. can still do like a young Canelo and let them combinations go. So, and plus he's working on his stamina and everything else. So it's going to be interesting on fight night to see if Devin Haney, like Crawford, is going to be over prepared and can make the fight look easy. But again, I'm not so sure it's going to go that way, because inside the ring, Crawford was frustrating Canelo with footwork, angles, and timing. And Brian Norman Jr. just may be ready for all that Devin Haney's bringing. And Devin Haney may find himself saying, damn, this Crawford blueprint ain't working the way I thought it would work out, because this man is hitting me with some shit. And it hurts. But if it's working, Devin Haney can make Brian Norman Jr. look slow. He can make him look predictable. He can make him look one-dimensional. Now, what was supposed to be Canelo's greatest strength, his size and power, was neutralized and turned into a liability. Crawford did that. Can Devin Haney do that against Brian Norman Jr.? That's the question. Can he use the supposed strength that Brian Norman Jr. is bringing to the ring, size and power? Can Haney neutralize it and turn it into a liability? That's the real question. Now, when it comes to Devin Haney, Haney, like Crawford, is not the favorite against Brian Norman Jr., in case y'all didn't know. Norman has the explosiveness, hunger, kind of raw power that most would think would overwhelm Haney. This is what many people felt Canelo had going into the Crawford fight. But if Haney wants to shock the world like Crawford, he must adopt the same mindset and execution. And this is where he got a bit of a dilemma, because most people are saying that maybe Devin Haney doesn't have that mindset because of everything Devin Haney went through in the Ryan Garcia fight, and even before the Ryan Garcia fight. You know, there are a lot of boxing fans who felt Devin Haney didn't really have power, doesn't really have a chin. And sometimes I think they pick on Devin Haney. Don't get me wrong, he's done some stuff where I'm like, little young champ out here making some bad decisions. On social media, some of the ranting and raving that he does, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with the language. I don't agree with, talking about religion, and using a bunch of profanity. But I'm not judging him. I'm just telling you, for me, watching that as an older head, I'm like, there's a better way. But he can do what he wants, because it don't affect me. I just tell you, from a guy 50 years old, retired military cat, when I watch these young guys, there's certain things that just stand out to me. But for Devin, the mindset, I don't know if he has the mindset or could have the mindset of a Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford was a guy whose own mother used to pay people to try to beat him up. He was a guy who'd been shot in the head. He was a guy who was out there running in the streets, making all the poor decisions, and then decided he wanted to make a change. You're going to have something different ingrained in you. You know what I'm saying? When you go through different challenges and different situations. And I don't talk about me, and I'm not going to say much, but what I can tell you is me joining the military, it took me about maybe 8 years to make some necessary changes. 30, maybe 11, 12 years. But I still am what I am at my core. And that's why I know places I can't go, different conversations I can't be around, personalities I can't be around, because they have something in you that will surface, you know what I'm saying? And with Crawford, you can see the things that surface with him, he gets to channel that in the ring. But again, the mindset of Crawford, and he'll tell you, I've changed a lot, but I still have some ways, I still have some things I need to work on. Nothing seems forced with Crawford. With Devin Haney, as far as a tough guy, he's not that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good to be a good kid, to be a good adult. People respect it. I mean, his dad got it right. I mean, his pops got it right. But I understand this is boxing, and not everybody wants to see the good boy, like Triple G was saying shit. They want to see somebody out there get a little bit thugged out, a little Mike Tyson-ish, a little Zab Judah-ish. They want to see a little Ricardo Mayorga going on out there. But again, I just think, can Haney adopt the same mindset and execution that Crawford had to adopt to get that victory? Now, the who of this fight is clear. Haney is the technician. Norman Jr., if I had to break it up with technician and brawler, you got to put Haney as a technician and Norman as the brawler. That doesn't mean he's not technical. Okay? Now, the what is Haney proven he can neutralize danger, which is what Brian Norman Jr. brings to the ring, that he can neutralize that with his skill. The win comes down to timing. You know what I'm saying? Haney must control the pace from round one. As soon as he comes out, flick a few jabs out at Brian Norman Jr., just like Crawford did to Canelo. As soon as the bell rang, ding, ding, Crawford was thinking bing, bings. Haney's got to think the same way. But Haney, I do think, needs to be more. I think Crawford had to be careful through the first 4 rounds, but after that, it was green light, go, all gas, no brakes. I think Devin Haney need to be thinking the same shit. Survive these early rounds, even though Brian Norman Jr. down the stretch is a problem. But maybe after that, he can outbox, win some early rounds, keep his distance, and then really start to pick it up and push the pace, because Devin Haney has a great gas tank. And next thing you know, he's up on the scorecards, and Brian Norman Jr. is trying to get a knockout. But I'll say this, right? We talk about the who, the what, we talk about the when, but then there's the where, right? The where is inside the ring, but also inside the mental battle. Who's going to win the mental battle? Haney has to win the psychological war before Norman lands a punch. He's got to get in there and take some of that Norman Jr. confidence away. He's got to hit him with some shit. By the time the 3rd round comes, Norman Jr. is saying, I feel like there's 15 of them in here. You know what I'm saying? And then when I do try to throw a shot at one of the 15, they're gone. And that's what Haney has to do, and that's how I think he can win the psychological war before Norman Jr. really lands something, a fight-changing shot. You got to make him hesitate, but just a fraction. You know what I'm saying? 1/10 of a second. That's all Haney needs, as Brian Norman Jr. to show reluctance to let his hands go, to overthink, and all of a sudden Brian Norman Jr. is a stationary target, feet in the mud, and Devin Haney is having his way. That is how the IQ can beat power. But again, you out here trying to land shots on Brian Norman Jr., that means you got to let your hands go. You letting your hands go, I mean, there's a chance for someone to counter you or time you or hit you with some shit. So, great reward, but a huge risk, because Brian Norman Jr. may be looking to dance that dirty bird in that ring. If Devin is letting his hands go, Brian Norman Jr. may be licking his chops, saying, okay, you want to let them hands go? Well, let me let mine go. Bing, bing. And next thing you know, Devin Haney don't make it out of the first 4 rounds. But what I'll say this is Devin's got to do something. Now, the why, because this is Haney's chance to reinvent himself at 147. Fix the computer. He wants to get back in the position of not only holding the title, but being in talks as one of the pound-for-pound greats. And he's trying to follow in Crawford's footsteps, I think, to cement himself as arguably, the best fighter of this generation. And the way that Devin Haney can get back to that, the quickest way, is to get in the ring with a guy like Brian Norman Jr., who, to many, is the best fighter at 147, kind of like Crawford going up to 154. He fought arguably at that time the best fighter at 154, which was Majumov, and he beat him. So Devin Haney is kind of traveling that same path. Then Crawford skipped 160, went to 68, and fought the best fighter in that division and beat him. But again, Crawford was able to cement himself as the best fighter of this generation. Devin Haney wants to do that. But I'm not so sure Devin Haney is cut from the same cloth as Crawford. He can cut Crawford's blueprint out, bring that to the gym, and try to recreate it. But he can never be Terence Crawford, and that's something that I want to make sure I foot stomp in this video. But what I will say, the most important punch for Devin Haney is the jab. The second thing that's extremely important for Devin Haney is his speed. Hand speed, foot speed. He got good defense too. Devin Haney has got to be okay with saying, you know what, man, forget the fans, forget the critics. I'm going to move. And I'm going to move as much as I need to and score the points I need to avoid danger, to avoid a catastrophe in this ring. Because if Devin Haney stays on that line, or he's dropping his hands around his waist, or he's showboating, he doing any of that bojangle bullshit in that ring, Brian Norman Jr. will clip him. And it ain't going to be good. And I personally think he'll have an easier time knocking out Devin Haney than he had knocking out Jin Sasaki. You see, Devin Haney's already, he took so much damage from Ryan Garcia. And I'm going to say this, you know, I don't agree with what Ryan Garcia did. That was horrible. But the reality is, it happened. And I think that affected Devin Haney's punch resistance. We're going to find out when he and Brian Norman Jr. fight, but they did Devin Haney wrong. They did him wrong. But also at the same time, Devin Haney he shouldn't be as dehydrated at 147. It still seemed like it's a hard weight cut for him, but that should help with punch resistance as well and being able to absorb those shots at 147. But remember, Brian Norman Jr., I don't care what you say, there's something special about his hands. You see what he did to Santillan. You see what he did to that Puerto Rican fight. You see what he did to Sasaki. Something special about his hands, and he's been out here putting the bing-bings on people for quite some time. A lot of people still want to bring up that fight where he got hurt. He never lost. Okay? This is boxing. Shit happens. But what he's done is he's continued to evolve and move up the ladder. And that's why Brian Norman Jr. is where he's at. But when it comes to Devin Haney and Brian Norman Jr., say, yo, how's Devin going to get this done? I think that how is the most important part. Haney must make Norman fight at a pace that benefits him. I think if you slow the fight down, Brian Norman Jr. will thrive. If you pick the pace up, you're going to force Brian Norman Jr. to do some things that maybe he doesn't want to do at the time he doesn't want to do it, because he's going to say, shit, I'm losing rounds. This man is not hurting me, but he's out here chicken pecking, coochie cooing. He's tickling me round after round, and I don't like being tickled. So let me step on the gas and try to catch up with him. All of a sudden now he's getting countered and caught. And a guy like Haney may be able to set a trap and use Brian Norman Jr.'s momentum against him. Now when he's getting countered by these shots that are supposed to feel like pillows, now he feel like he's running into a wall because Devin Haney is setting traps and using his momentum against him. So the fight's got to be at a pace that benefits Devin Haney. He's got to use his jab the way Crawford used his angles. But he's got to use angles too. He's got to smother Norman's explosions with clinches. We all know Devin Haney will clinch. And you get in the ring, it's marathon / clinchathon. You know what I'm saying? He's got to force the resets, and he's got to use his footwork. He's got to use his footwork, man. I think every round he must just chip away at Norman's confidence. He's got to chip away at it. The good thing about it is Brian Norman Jr.'s dad was a fighter, so he can understand what his son's going through. Pops has already been there, done that, had ups and downs in his professional career, but he brings all the experience in the world. Let me say this. I'm gonna drop this gem on y'all real quick. If I was a fighter, I wouldn't want somebody in my corner who's never been punched in the face. If I was a fighter, I wouldn't want somebody in my corner who's always had their way inside the ring. I'd want somebody who's had wins, who's had losses, who's had issues outside the ring, politics of boxing, has got judges to rob him, had referees mistreat him. I would like to have someone who has had experience in all areas, the good, the bad, the ugly. And that's what it sounds like Brian Norman Sr. has had, or he did have when he was a professional fighter. That's why he should be able to understand everything his son's going through in any fight. Bill Haney, not so sure he can understand that. But then again, I don't know. I don't think it doesn't sound like he used to box. But he's been around it. But it's still a difference when you've been punched in your face. So as far as trying to chip away at Norman's confidence, Even if you're able to get Brian Norman Jr. to be like, damn, what's going on? His pop's going to snap him out of that shit with the quickness. Because pop's been there, done that. He knows how to deal with it, and he knows how to articulate these things to his son. But I think Devin Haney's got to really bank on Norman Jr. getting reckless. And you just don't see him getting reckless in fights. But if he can get him to get reckless, to get anxious, to become a bit predictable, that's when Haney has to answer with precise counters. That can make the difference, because if now you're swelling up Brian Norman Jr., you got him cut. And then if for some reason the dad, who should be cool as a cucumber and calm under pressure, he starts to show a little bit of panic too. The quarter starts to crumble. And then Bill Haney's going to recognize that immediately. You know, he's sitting over there with all four of them eyes watching to see what's going on. And he's going to be telling Devin, you got him, you got him. They're going to start dancing the Cupid Shuffle and shit in the ring. But I just think for Brian Norman Jr., he can't get reckless. Throwing shots that don't land and allow Devin Haney to counter him. And he can't afford for Devin Haney to make him hesitate. That's all bad. But if Haney can do those things we talked about, Devin Haney as the underdog, he can flip the script, and he can make he can create a very bad night for Brian Norman Jr. But again, Crawford did it against Canelo. Devin Haney's not Crawford. And Brian Norman Jr. at this point in his career is not where Canelo was in his career. So Brian Norman Jr. still got that hunger, still chasing greatness. So I think Devin Haney is in a very difficult fight. You got to take a look at a few comparisons, right? Let me see if I can show this to you. Let me see. Okay, when you take a look at this comparison chart, Crawford against Canelo, Haney against Norman, the size disadvantage, opponent strength, strategy, key adjustment, mental edge. When you look at Crawford and Canelo, the size disadvantage, Crawford was a smaller man. Haney and Norman Jr., Haney smaller with less power. The opponent's strength, power and size and chin for Canelo against Crawford. Canelo had the power, size, and chin. Norman Jr. has the youth, and he's explosive. Canelo and Crawford, when it came to strategy, Crawford was able to neutralize the size with timing and angles. For Devin Haney, he's got to neutralize the power with jab and control. Key adjustments for Crawford and Canelo was Crawford used angles and footwork. Devin Haney against Norman Jr. got to be able to up the pace, clinch, and jab. The mental edge, I think you just need Crawford showed patience and IQ. Devin Haney has got to remain composed. He has got to remain composed. Now, when you talk about keys for victory for Devin Haney, I think you look at a couple of key areas: preparation, defense, offense, mental warfare, and then the finish. As far as preparation, Crawford's example, sparred bigger men. Put on functional muscle, or functional mass. Devin Haney's got to spar heavy hitters and pressure fighters. He's got to be ready for Brian Norman Jr. Defense, Crawford used footwork to frustrate the shit out of Canelo. Devin Haney got to stay off the ropes, pivot constantly. For offense, Crawford was countering the crap out of Canelo's mistakes, made him pay. Devin Haney got to jab, go to the body, sneaky counters. As far as the mental warfare, Terence Crawford, he controlled the tempo. Canelo never was able to up it in the fight and get a step ahead of Crawford. For Devin Haney, he got to force Norman to doubt himself. He got to try to create some kind of doubt in Brian Norman Jr. And then as far as finishing, hey, Crawford finished the fight by dominating the late rounds. If Crawford wouldn't have dominated the late rounds, he would have got a draw or lost. For Devin Haney, he got to save that gas for the championship rounds. If he uses it all up, he may be in trouble because Brian Norman Jr. can push in them late rounds too. But Devin Haney is known for having the expanded gas tank. So at the end of the day, Nobody gave Crawford a real chance against Canelo. But greatness is born in these moments of doubts, and that's what you saw with Terence Crawford and Canelo. Now with Devin Haney, not many people are giving him a chance against Brian Norman Jr. But again, people doubt you. That's when greatness is born. Can Devin Haney come out here and put on a great performance and get a huge victory? Because he's walking into the exact same storm that Terence Crawford walked in. Devin Haney's walking into the exact same storm against Brian Norman Jr. But if he can mirror Crawford's discipline, Crawford's preparation, and the tactical brilliance, he just may pull off the unthinkable, man. So can Haney write his own Crawford moment at 147? I mean, that's the question that has fans glued to this fight and has me doing this video. But that being said, I don't know. If you ask me who I think is going to win right now, I think Brian Norman Jr. But I'm gonna keep doing my videos, learning more about these guys. I'm gonna try to get Brian Norman Sr. on my channel for an interview. I'll try to get Bill Haney too. I don't know if he'll come. You know what I'm saying? But I'll reach out to Brian Norman Jr. and Brian Norman Sr. and see if they'll come and do a. I ain't gonna keep them long. I'm so goddamn busy, man. But if the conversation flowing, we'll sit there, man, and we'll have a good dialogue. Everybody knows I don't have a favorite fighter. I don't really give a shit who wins. I just like boxing. But I would like to talk to them, and I would talk about all these things. They ain't gonna give up no game plan. I don't want them to do that, but I just like to talk to them because me personally, I understand the Crawford-Canelo comparison with Haney and, the Crawford-Canelo, with Haney and Norman Jr. I just think Terence Crawford was in a different place mentally than Devin Haney is. I think Canelo's in a different place mentally and physically than Brian Norman Jr. is. I think Crawford was more healthy all around than Canelo. And I think Brian Norman Jr. is more healthy all around than Devin Haney. Even though Devin could win the fight because he's so talented and fast and with the IQ and brilliance and stamina and speed, I just think Brian Norman Jr., man, people are underrating him and underestimating him. And it sounds to me like Devin Haney and his team are underestimating Brian Norman Jr., just like Canelo and his team underestimated Terence Crawford. The only difference really in this fight is Brian Norman Jr. is they're supposed to be the bigger, stronger, powerful guy. But as far as how he's being treated, Devin Haney's treating Brian Norman Jr. like Canelo treated Crawford. Same thing. The difference is Brian Norman Jr. is not known as the technician, the technical fighter, at least by most fans when compared to Devin Haney. Anyway, we'll see if Haney's Crawford blueprint, if that will work, and if he can use his IQ, his brilliance, and all of his experience to get a victory over Brian Norman Jr. Anything's possible. I think that shit is easier said than done. That's just me. Anyway, y'all keep cool. I can't wait till this fight happens. I think tomorrow I'm going to go live and I'm going to talk about all this and alive. I'm going to go jogging tomorrow. I'll probably run for an hour and a half. Probably like 11:30 to 12:30. I'll only do it for an hour. I think I'm going to do that. Anyway, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. In the breeze.